Hello, everyone, and happy Sunday. How is everyone today? Let me know if the music is too loud. I don't think it is, but I always want to be mindful of that, just so I can get the message out. So, it's really funny because this is the first time that Matthew's been downstairs since I've done lives, and his little phone was charming, like ding ding, and he was like, ah, silently, because he's so sweet, and he's just like, sorry. So, as of right now, all the little critters are sleeping, and I told him, yeah, just hang out down here, and then if they get rowdy and rambunctious, which once the cat science wakes up and motion, it's a train wreck. They're always so loud and fumbling and barking and growling, so yeah, right now they're asleep. Anyways, I just wanted to hop on here and really talk about something that I've been working on personally for a while, and it's talking about shadow work. And so, for one, I'd be curious to know what your idea of shadow work is. What do you think of when you hear that phrase, shadow work? So I've got a whole bunch of notes, but I was just telling Matthew that I'm going to kind of condense it and focus on some really key, important parts that I think you can, start using these helpful hints today. And hey, Charmian, how's it going? And like I said in the comment on this live, go ahead and grab a piece of paper if you have it around you, because these notes, I'm going to talk about some really great questions that you can ask yourself at a later time. And when I started answering these questions, I immediately realized that these are really important questions to kind of dive into what your shadow work is and how you can work through it, right? Because we all have it. So that's kind of what I want to jump into right now. So what is shadow work? So we all have like a shadow side and a light side, right? The thing is we have to work through our shadow work, which encompasses like trauma, anger, past life trauma, stuff that you are aware of and maybe not even aware of, but there's things that trigger you, and it's from something, like it stemmed from something else. So like it may be a childhood traumatic experience, it may be one of your past relationships, it may be like a parental relationship. And also shadow side is just talking about stuff that's hard to talk about that everyone has, because that's part of being a human, right? So we all have these traits, and not all of them are good and not all of them are bad, right? So what really stuck out in my mind is that I was making breakfast for Matthew and I yesterday, and I had one of my, hey Lisa, I had one of my talks going on. I always have like Tara Brock on or something, and I honestly cannot remember who said this, but there was a quote, and I wrote it down, and I even showed Matthew, and I was like, this is phenomenal. So this is kind of what got me started on it, and I want to share it with you. So the quote is, or the question is, what things in your life are you unwilling to pay attention to? Let me say that again. What things in your life are you unwilling to pay attention to? And when I heard that, it just really made me stop and think. And I think and I always share my experiences, and I think one of my things, I was just telling Ben this yesterday, is I am really unwilling to take full accountability with my diet and full accountability of my, overeating sometimes, eating unhealthy. And because my health is, reliant on my diet right now, I really need to be able to look at that. And of course, with eating habits, I feel like, especially since I've lost a lot of weight, there is a lot of emotions and sometimes trauma that is carried with that, and sometimes that's why we have that extra weight, right? So that's something that I am trying to look at. Another thing is, recently I've been working with Matthew because I realized that I have this really stupid, it's not stupid, but like when I get home, I have kind of this routine, right? And it always ends up with me coming home, starting to clean right away, starting to make dinner, taking on all these tasks, and just getting annoyed with no one in particular, but because I like let myself do all these things and then I get annoyed because I have to do all these things, right? So my irritability is something that I'm working on right now. And it's been really helpful to try to look at what is causing that. And so to kind of go back to what we're going to work on, I'm going to give you some tips on how to start into actually diving into your shadow work. And what you can, just basic stuff. And when I was researching this today and writing down my own thoughts and then researching it some more at the end, I really went down a rabbit hole that was really, really amazing and informational. So the first thing that I would suggest, if you're wanting to work on your shadow self, which is working on your anger or your ego self, or if you're controlling, or if you're always negative, and the stuff that you're not really willing to pay attention to, the first thing I would say is journaling, writing. So with that being said, I really found a lot of help in doing the journals that already have questions in them. So there was a journal that I was gifted a couple months ago, and I think it was called Zen as the F word. And what it does is every page has stuff that you answer. So sometimes if you're feeling that you don't know what to write, or you are not accustomed to writing, it's not one of your daily practices, that's perfect, because go ahead and go on Amazon, or go ahead and your local bookstore would be great if they're open right now, and find a journal that has prompts, okay? Because that can kind of stir up some journaling exercises just in that aspect. And then if you continue to journal, I swear to you, it'll really unpack a lot of things that maybe you don't want to say out loud, for one, right now. Things that you kind of repressed from past trauma, things that you're really angry about. And like I said, the whole thing is just opening that realm up, and journaling is really great. But here's the thing. So when I was talking about, or when I was writing down my own notes, I was like, you know what? I wonder if there's some journaling prompts that I could give my friends and my tribe and everyone that resonates with this some ideas. So that's what I was talking about. If you have a piece of paper, maybe write some of these down. These questions are definitely thought-provoking. They can be healing, and they can help you. So the first one, I really like this question. How, and this one I think, and these questions you can ask yourself daily, weekly, monthly. I do recommend that you keep asking these questions, and it's kind of like a universal checkpoint. That's what I always say. So just to keep yourself aware, and also you can look back at the hey Sheila, the progress that you've made, right? So make sure you date your journal, make sure that you maybe even have a couple of them to focus on different things, right? So the first question is, how can I be kinder to myself? How can I be kinder to myself? That's really important. And those can be very simple things. But one thing I am working on is, like I told you, my shadow work that I'm working on right now is my irritability. And so one thing that I can do to be kinder to myself is not put all the pressure on me and ask for help in any situation, because that's what I always tend to do. Is I always think I can take everything on, I don't need anyone's help. But to be kind to myself, which in turn is making me kinder to others, I have to give myself permission to just step back sometimes and let someone else, take the driver wheel. So another one, this is really interesting. This is where I was like, oh snap, it's getting good. In what ways do I consciously or unconsciously punish myself? That's a huge one. So I'm going to say that again in case you're writing it down, or feel free to save this video for a later time, and please share with your friends if you feel so inclined. In what ways do I consciously or unconsciously punish myself? That's a huge one. And this can be regarding anything, right? Number 3, what is something I should forgive myself for? What is something I should forgive myself for? And why haven't I forgiven myself before? And why haven't I forgiven myself now? So it's talking about forgiveness. and this is something that is so huge, and I'm going to do a separate video on a guided meditation to help heal early childhood trauma, because I think when we are brave enough to go back into those repressed memories and look at yourself as a young child experiencing that trauma, you have to forgive yourself because you were doing the best you could with what you knew at that time, right? So the number four question for your journal prompt is, what is my definition of failure? What is my definition of failure? And that is so interesting. I would be curious to know what your definition of failure is, because failure and success looks different to many different people, many different scenarios, right? So in addition to that question for number 4, what's something that I have failed at previously, and what emotions did I feel at the time? And that one's really important, because once you start, and you can attach that end of that question, what emotions did I feel at that time, to anything that you're looking back on to work on your shadow work, right? And I'm going to go into, after the journal prompts, some of the other steps that you can realize that you are working on your shadow self, okay? So, and this is a really cool one, going off of question number 4 about what emotions did I feel at the time. How do I move forward from failure? How do I move forward from failure? Number 5 I thought was very interesting, and I really think this is so important that we ask ourselves these questions. This whole year has been really powerful because I have ended a lot of toxic situations, toxic jobs, toxic people, toxic relationships. And this is another universal checkpoint, I feel like, checkpoint from the universe, to ask yourself these things, because this is a constant revolving door, okay? So we always have to be constantly aware of, is this situation, is this is the situation and this person serving my best self, right? So the question is, what unhealthy attachments, which can be things, places, people, do I hold on to? What unhealthy attachments, things, people, and places do I hold on to? And this is huge. So all these questions, you're kind of seeing a pattern that it's like a main question and then, like, you know, little extra questions to follow up with it. So what fears do I have around the ideas of ending these attachments? So here's something about that question. What fears do I have about ending these attachments, about people, places, and things? Because we don't like to feel uncomfortable. So when you ask yourself this question, you have to be honest with yourself. And like I said, sometimes it comes out where you don't physically want to say it. So journaling is so vital right now, because then if that's the first step of admitting, not that you have a problem, but admitting that you're working on yourself, right? So what fears do you have around it? Because a lot of the toxic people, places, and things that we have around us, we've had for many, many years or many, many lifetimes, if that resonates with you. And so they feel comfortable. That anxiety feels comfortable. That fear feels comfortable. That anger feels normal and comfortable. I'm telling you, it's not, right? So what do I have to gain from ending these attachments? So you think about it. I want you to think about the current attachments that you have to these certain people, places, or things, and how they can be toxic. And notice what emotions you're feeling. Be honest. And then I want you to think about, if you were to remove all those toxic people, places, or things, what would you feel like? What do you imagine yourself doing? Where would you live? Where would you work? Who would you be with? Who would be your partner? That's something really important. And like I said, that constantly is something that we need to be aware of, because I feel like we are constantly relearning cycles, and I don't want to say being tested, but we're constantly needing to be aware of that, because toxic people, places, and things can come in our life at any time, but you have the power to turn it away and stop it right at the door, right? So the next question is what negative emotions am I most comfortable feeling? And that was a really good one. And the follow-up question with that one, you guys, is, and how often do they appear in my daily life? So what negative emotions am I most comfortable feeling? And how often do they appear in my daily life? I can answer this one. So kind of going back to my routine, that I come home and I allow myself to get overwhelmed. It's my choice, by thinking I can conquer all these things. You know, after working 8 hours and being mentally exhausted from my job, I take on these things and I allow myself to feel irritable almost every single day. However, I've been working on it. And so to break that cycle and just be like, hey, you can come home and just maybe do one thing or maybe do two things. You don't have to do 2 hours worth of chores, right? They can wait for another day. So how often do these negative feelings appear in your lifetime? Is it daily? Is it weekly? Is it multiple times a day? And this, I think, really applies to people with anger issues and people with anxiety, right? So just being aware and mindful of when these things occur. And it might be a good idea to start journaling that, or keep a notepad when you're starting to, and I'll go into this in a second, but when you're starting to feel yourself reach that point of extreme anger, extreme irritability, extreme anxiety, extreme sadness, there's something leading up to that present moment. Like, it doesn't just happen, right? There's different triggers and different points that help you climb up to that ladder, to that space of being uncomfortable and being angry and being sad and being hurt, right? So it's not just something that spurs out of nowhere. So the next one is, what is a grudge or an incident that I am holding on to? What is a grudge or incident that I'm holding on to? And the follow-up question is, why do I choose to hold on to this weight? And that stems back to the attachment. Why are you so attached to this person, place, or thing? Why are you holding on to this incident? What is keeping you there? It may be a negative incident or traumatic experience, but is it making you feel comfortable because that's all you know? And so the uncomfortable, what should be uncomfortable, is actually now comfortable, right? So with that follow-up question is, what would it feel like to let that go? And how can you let it go? And I know these questions sound kind of simple sometimes, but these are questions I don't think we ask ourselves a lot. And when you're checking in with yourself, your physical, emotional, spiritual being, these are questions you can ask yourself anytime you feel like that. What would it feel like to let that go? What would it feel like to have that person that always is mean to you or negative or toxic and doesn't encourage you to be your best self? What if you allowed yourself to let them go? What will that feel like? And that's another thing about manifesting your best life, is imagining yourself as your best self. Who's around you? What are you doing? What language, what words are you speaking to yourself and to others when you imagine your best self, right? Number 8, this is what I kind of been working on with myself, is how important am I to myself? How high do I prioritize myself? And that's huge. A lot of people are so busy and hold themselves to such high, unattainable standards that they don't think about it. And they just, they set that standard and they can't reach it. But you need to prioritize yourself and realize when you need rest and when you need to have some alone time, or when you need to go to the ocean, or whatever you need, right? So how are you prioritizing yourself? When are you taking time for yourself, right? So that's the journaling part. And that was really, really substantial to me. And I, as my life coaching practice is starting to grow, the life coaching clients that I have, I'm going to be able to give them these packets, these journal entries, to work on that, because I think it's really, really important that we try to ask these questions, right? So I already talked about working with your shadow self, and notice the moment what's triggering you. And so when you're working on your shadow self or a situation or an anger problem or something like that, notice the pattern, because you'll see it. There's going to be different situations, or there's going to be the same situation maybe, or the same setting, or the same people that are around you that trigger these things, right? So know the signs of what is physically amping you up. So know those trigger points, right? Physically and mentally and emotionally. Like, if you're starting to get anxiety, what is happening to your body? Are you feeling tense? Are you feeling like you want to cry? Are you feeling really hot? Are you feeling really lightheaded? So when you're starting to feel yourself amp up, what I want you to do is I want you to just be present in that moment. And yes, trauma is happening right there, but start to focus on, I want you to put your hand on your heart and focus on that beat of your heart. Because when you make that physical connection with yourself and you're just focusing on your heartbeat, you're able to slowly bring yourself back down to your center and ground yourself, right? So focus on that rhythm and it'll help you calm down, because you'll be able to focus on that and just slowly start to bring yourself back down. So what I want to recommend is know your middle point. And what I'm talking about is know when you're halfway to your trigger point, where it's like, if you reach the top, which is, you know, the highest point, and you're starting to get angry or upset and you lash out on people, know the halfway mark. So know when you're feeling that physical sensation of anxiety, anger, sadness, and then bring it back down. Do not wait until it's already at the top, right? So another thing is, I really like this question. I heard this in another talk yesterday. So what actions and or triggers make things worse or better? So what actions make things better and what triggers make things worse? I know it's a simple question, but those questions can really start to help you unpack the simple equation. When I do this, I feel this, and then I do this, right? So it's an equation. So that's something that you can work on as well, right? I think that's all I'm going to go in today, because the journaling, I feel like, is a really, really important part. And I recommend, like I said, at least journaling, try it out and see what you think. And keep it on your nightstand or keep it in your car when, you know, you're waiting to go to work or on your lunch hour. Start to answer these questions and feel free to give me any feedback or anything that you learned that you'd be willing to share. I'd really appreciate it. But this is kind of the first lesson into diving into shadow work. And so I hope you found this, I hope you found it meaningful, and maybe some of these questions you didn't think to ask yourself. But now that you have this, I'm giving you homework to go and answer these questions and see what you find out about yourself. And there's 2 quotes that I wanted to end on, and I loved these quotes. The first one is, "Strength is what we gain from the madness we survive." Strength is what we gain from the madness we survive. And I think that is really fitting when we're talking about healing ourselves from trauma and past experiences, right? So I loved that one. And the next one is, "There are no shortcuts to any place worth going." There are no shortcuts to any place worth going. So I loved that as well. Just continue to work on yourself and heal yourself so you can heal others, and that's how we change the world. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I will see you sometime very soon. Thank you so much for watching. This will be posted on my YouTube channel, Healing with Happiness, and I'll make sure to share the link. And please feel free to share this with others, and I will talk to you soon. Bye, guys.